There's a conversation happening in share houses and kitchen benches and group chats all across this country right now. And it goes something like this. Someone lands a new job, a promotion, a pay rise. Their income hits $150,000 a year. And for about 2 weeks, they feel like they've cracked it. Like the anxiety is finally going to stop. Like the mental maths they do at 11 p.m. will finally go quiet. And then the bills arrive. And the mortgage repayment hits, and the childcare invoice lands. And they sit there, staring at their bank account thinking, where the hell did it go? $150,000 a year, mate. And it feels like they are barely keeping their head above water. Look, I want to talk about why that feeling is not irrational. I want to talk about why it is, in fact, the only logical response to what modern Australian life actually costs in 2026. Here's the thing nobody says out loud in polite company. Admitting that $150,000 doesn't feel like enough is social suicide in Australia. You say that at a dinner party and half the table thinks you're being grotesque. Because $150,000 is good money. Nobody disputes that. It puts you comfortably above the median. It's the kind of number that was supposed to solve the problem. And that's exactly the trap, mate. Because the shame of admitting the number isn't working stops people from asking the more important question, which is, why isn't it working? And nobody in the financial media, nobody in politics, nobody handing out mortgage advice over a laminated brochure is going to answer that question honestly. So let's do it properly. Think of a treadmill, not one set to a comfortable pace, one that has been quietly, incrementally, speeding up for 15 years, while everyone was looking at the screen in front of them and not the dial underneath their feet. The income kept growing. The lifestyle expectation kept growing. But the cost of delivering that lifestyle, the actual dollar figure attached to what a middle-class life is supposed to look like in a major Australian city, that grew faster than both of them. And now, millions of Australians are running harder than any generation before them, earning more in real terms than their parents ever did, and somehow arriving at the end of the month with less. The treadmill didn't break, it just got away from everyone, and nobody thought to mention it. Alright, let's start at the bottom of the tier we're talking about today. A single person. Good job, sharp enough to be earning $120,000 a year. In this country, in this era, that puts you in the top quarter of individual income earners. That is objectively not bad, mate. After tax, you're taking home somewhere around $88,000 a year, roughly $7,300 a month. Now let's run the Sydney version of this life. A one-bedroom apartment in an inner or middle-ring suburb, somewhere like Newtown or Erskineville or even out toward Marrickville, is going to cost you $2,600 to $2,900 a month right now. That's not a premium apartment, that's just a normal one-bedroom. Call it $2,700. You've just spent 37% of your take-home before you've done a single thing. Add groceries, transport, utilities, health insurance, your phone plan, a gym membership if you value your mental health enough to prioritize it, and you are through $5,500 a month without a single luxury in sight. That leaves you $1,800 a month for everything else: savings, travel, car registration, the dentist, the birthday present for your mate's engagement, life. And $1,800 a month sounds fine, until you understand that building any meaningful financial buffer on $1,800 a month in 2026 Australia takes years of perfect discipline and zero bad luck. One medical bill, one redundancy, one broken laptop, and the buffer is gone. This person is not struggling, they are not in hardship, but they are one event away from financial stress at all times, and they are earning $120,000 a year. Move up, a couple, combined income of $150,000. This is the tier the video title is actually about, so let's sit here for a moment. Two people, both working, both contributing, doing precisely what the system asked of them. They did the hard thing. They saved the deposit. It took 4 years, which already tells you something. They bought a 2-bedroom apartment, not in the inner suburbs because that ship sailed, but somewhere serviceable. Box Hill in Melbourne, Ryde in Sydney. The kind of suburb where the coffee is fine and the commute is not ideal. The mortgage on an entry-level 2-bedroom purchased at current prices is sitting somewhere around $3,800 to $4,200 a month. Strata on top could be $700, could be $1,100. Let's call it $900. Because buildings in this country are aging and the levies only go one direction. That's $5,100 a month in housing before anyone has eaten. Their combined take-home is roughly $11,200 a month. So they've handed 45 cents of every dollar they earn straight to housing. Now the kid arrives, because people don't stop having families just because the market is inconvenient, mate. Childcare at 3 or 4 days a week is going to run them $1,800 to $2,200 a month after the subsidy, depending on the center and the suburb. They are now through $7,000 a month before groceries, before the car, before anything that looks remotely like a life. They are in the top third of Australian household incomes. They own property. They are technically winning, and every single month feels like they are losing. Something about that sentence deserves to be said slowly. Now here's the tier that should make no sense, but will. A couple on $220,000 a year. Both professionals, both successful. They've done all of it right. Bought the apartment years ago, built equity, sold up, rolled that into a freestanding townhouse in the outer suburbs. Kellyville, Cranbourne, Oran Park. The kind of estate where every fourth house is identical, and the developer named the streets after things that no longer exist in the landscape. The townhouse cost $950,000. Not a mansion, a townhouse, mate. The mortgage sits around $5,600 a month at current rates. 2 kids now. Childcare for one, school fees for the other if they've gone private, or public school with all the voluntary contributions and the uniform levy and the excursion fees that add up to something that isn't technically free. 2 cars, because the outer suburbs are not designed for human beings who don't own a vehicle. 2 lots of registration, insurance, servicing, and fuel. The toll roads, because if you work in the CBD and you live in the outer west or the outer southeast, the toll road isn't a choice. It's a tax on living where you can afford. This couple takes home around $16,000 a month, and when you map out where it goes, the actual categorized breakdown, there is less discretionary money sitting in this household than your instinct says there should be. They are in the top 10%. They have a house. They have 2 cars. They have a life that photographs beautifully, and they are quietly, privately, genuinely anxious about money in a way they feel they are not allowed to admit. How does that work? How does a household in the top 10% of Australian incomes lie awake doing maths? It seems like the kind of sentence that only makes sense if someone is being irresponsible, if they're spending on stupid things, if they just need to cut the avocado toast, as the famous piece of advice once helpfully suggested. But strip out every discretionary item, tighten everything. Meal prep on Sundays, no subscriptions, no holidays, bare minimum. And the numbers still don't breathe. Because the problem isn't discretionary spending, mate. It never was. The problem is that the fixed costs, the mortgage, the childcare, the transport, the insurance, the things you cannot simply cancel, have consumed a share of Australian household income that no generation before this one has ever had to hand over. And the income hasn't kept pace, not even close. Here is the thing nobody is saying clearly enough. Feeling broke on $150,000 in Australia in 2026 is not a personal failing. It is not a budgeting problem. It is not a lifestyle inflation problem, although that can make it worse. It is a structural mismatch between what a middle-class life is supposed to cost and what the market has decided it actually does cost. The definition of ordinary got expensive. The house in the decent suburb, the 2 kids in care and school, the car that works, the annual leave that goes somewhere further than your parents' couch, the buffer that means a busted hot water system doesn't ruin your month. That package, that ordinary, unremarkable, middle-of-the-road Australian life, now carries a price tag that requires an extraordinary income to deliver. Middle class didn't get richer. Middle class got pricier. And the income required to feel financially stable didn't just creep up, it jumped. And the jump happened quietly, without announcement, while everyone was busy living inside it. Picture 2 friends from uni, same degree, same city, same ambition. The first one landed a decent job at 24, bought a modest unit in a suburb that wasn't fashionable yet, somewhere like Footscray or Penrith back in 2013. Didn't think too hard about it, just needed a place. The second spent those same years doing what the personal finance content told them to do, investing in themselves, traveling, building skills, paying off their hacks before touching property, because that seemed logical. They both hit $150,000 income around the same time. The first friend now has $350,000 to $400,000 in equity sitting in that unfashionable unit, which is now extremely fashionable. Their repayments are manageable because the debt is old and the property has done its work. The second friend is entering the market today, at today's prices with today's interest rates. Same income, same talent, same effort across 10 years. One of them feels comfortable. One of them feels broke. The variable wasn't intelligence. It wasn't discipline. It was the calendar, mate. If something in this just named a feeling you've been carrying around without the language for it, put it in the comments. Which tier are you sitting in right now? Be honest, because the honesty is the point. I read every single one. So where does that leave you practically? Because understanding why the system is broken doesn't pay your mortgage. The first thing, and this is genuinely the hardest, is to separate your financial identity from your postcode. The detached house in the suburb your parents' generation bought is not a neutral goal. It is a goal with a specific price tag that in most Australian cities now requires either generational wealth, a very fortunate entry date, or a household income that puts you in genuinely elite territory. That doesn't mean abandon home ownership, mate. It means interrogate which version of it you're actually chasing. The apartment, the townhouse, the smaller footprint in the location you actually want to be. These are not consolation prizes. They are mathematically superior decisions for the majority of Australian households in 2026. Own that without apology. The second move is to use the infrastructure that already exists for this exact problem. The first home super saver scheme is chronically underused. You can contribute voluntarily into super and withdraw up to $50,000 of those contributions for a deposit at a tax rate that beats any savings account on the planet. If you're at that stage, run the numbers this week, not next month, this week. If you're past it and you're sitting on a mortgage, your offset account is the single most reliable return available to you right now. Every dollar in there saves you your full interest rate, tax-free. It doesn't require timing the market. It doesn't require picking stocks. It just requires parking money in the right account and leaving it alone. The third move is the one that feels intangible, but is actually the most structurally important. Build margin and protect it like it's the asset, because it is. The gap between what comes in and what must go out, not what usually goes out, what must. That number is your actual financial health metric, not your salary, not your super balance, not the suburb you live in, the margin. Because in an economy where the fixed costs keep rising and the surprises never get cheaper, the margin is what keeps an inconvenience from becoming a crisis. This is really about something bigger than money. It's about deciding what game you're actually playing. Because there is a version of Australian financial life where you earn well, present well, live in the right suburb, drive the right car, and spend 30 years quietly, invisibly, running to stay still. And there is another version where you see the structure clearly, where you stop letting the property market and the comparison economy define what success is supposed to feel like, and you start building a life that has room to breathe. The salary will not rescue you. The promotion will not rescue you. More income flowing into a system with no margin just means more money disappearing faster. The rescue, if there is one, is in the architecture of how you manage what you already have. The treadmill will keep speeding up. The cost of ordinary will keep rising. The gap between what middle class is supposed to feel like and what it actually costs to deliver will not close by itself. But here's what doesn't lie, and never has. The number left over after everything that must leave. That number tells you the truth about your financial life with zero editorializing. Grow it, guard it, build your entire strategy around it. Because in one of the most expensive countries on earth, in one of the most expensive eras in its history, the margin is not a nice to have. The margin is the whole game. If you made it here, mate, you're already thinking about this differently than most people around you. Hit subscribe, Aussie Wealth, and turn on notifications, because alternative day, we get into what Australian financial life actually looks like right now. The real numbers, the real structure, the real strategy. No glossy nonsense, just the truth your bank is never going to volunteer.